Jim, our next question sent to cornydrive-thru at gmail.com from JC in San Francisco.
Gimmick infringement.
Just listen to the last drive-thru segment where you mentioned you'd be a journalist if wrestling hadn't panned out. Knowing your interest in photography, did you know longtime Courier Journal photographer Bill Luster? He recently passed away. Got the chance to meet him at a workshop in the early 2000s. He was a very nice man and a legend in the photojournalism world. Also, speaking as a full-time journalist for the past 25 years, you made the right choice, finding employment elsewhere. Here's a second question here, but do you know who Bill Luster is?
Well, actually, no, I hate to hear that he died. I didn't even know he was sick. But no, honestly, because, see, the thing is, think about our various ages. I assume I'm a little bit older than the writer here. And I don't know who anybody has worked for the Courier Journal over the last several decades are, but when I was a kid, I used to know all the columnists by their names and knew some of them actually from meeting them when I was a child or whatever. But I'm trying to remember, they had an aerial photographer for the Courier Journal in the 1950s, and it was not that gentleman. But I have a picture of Castle Cornet here, right as construction was almost finished, from about 1956, that my dad had taken from the photographer, the aerial photographer, in the helicopter and blown up, and we've had it on the wall, but I can't remember the daggum guy's name. God dang it. And he did a lot of famous photography in the 50s for the Courier, but can't remember his name.
Another question here from JC in San Francisco. As for my wrestling question, what happened to the Warlord's push in 1986 Crockett? I remember he got Baby Doll as his manager and was getting pushed in squash matches. The last I saw of him was a match versus the Midnight Express, where he kind of manhandled both Dennis and Bobby before Bubba knocked him out with a roll of quarters.
Yes.
That was the last time I remember seeing him. Did Dusty just lose interest in having yet another Road Warrior lookalike? Thanks as always.
No, it was actually, it was the other way around. He wanted to help him. See, when Warlord came in 1986, he was like 6'3" and 325 pounds, solid granite. I mean, you could lay your hands on him like if you were in a match or whatever, and you couldn't feel any fat whatsoever anywhere. And so he was a beast, but he was only 21 years old. And he was another guy from Minnesota that they had, if I remember, Al Blake, Vladimir Pietrov, and Tijo Khan came, all the bodybuilders from Minnesota. But the thing was, he was so green, and it wasn't his fault. He had just started. And I had the thing going with Baby Doll. I had Bubba when Warlord came in with her. We had a deal one night in Greenville, South Carolina, where I was working a little 5-minute match or whatever with Baby Doll. And I rolled out of the ring, and Warlord is supposed to pick me up and like roll me back in. He put his hands underneath my arms and just picked me up bodily off the ground with his arms straight out in front of him. And I weighed 220 then. At that, it was like just picking up a goddamn kitten. And so I can't remember exactly when a decision was made, but didn't they not send him to Kansas City when Crockett bought Kansas City? I don't know for sure they sent him to Florida, but I'm almost positive they sent him to Kansas City,
right? Because
they wanted him to get more experience outside of the spotlight of the main crew in Charlotte. You've got the Horsemen and the Rock and Roll and all the great workers. So that was a place where he could get a little bit more experience. And that's what he did with Bubba later on. Also, Dusty was sending him these places. And then Warlord eventually was back with Barbarian as a team in the first part of 1988, the Powers of Pain. And they were being pushed until Dusty wanted them to have that scaffold match with the Road Warriors. And they said, well, fuck, it's worth 300 pounds apiece. We're not dropping 25 feet off that scaffold. And they gave notice and went to the WWF to work with
Demolition.
Didn't they go up for Demolition, right? Because they left the Road Warriors one side and went to work with Demolition on the other side.
And it was a weird run because they brought him in as baby faces and then eventually managed by a babyface Baron von Raschke as a hooded manager running out to the ring with them. He had no history in the company. All of a sudden he was doing this. And it didn't really work. Like at times they kind of got a pop, but it wasn't really clicking. And then they did a double turn. And Mr. Fuji, the heel manager of Demolition at the Survivor Series in '88, turned on Demolition to embrace the powers of pain. And then Demolition began their babyface run. And there are very few tag teams as over as Demolition were from like the beginning of '89 through WrestleMania 6. And then they brought the Road Warriors in and turned Demolition heel too early, and it didn't.
Think about this with the, especially with the more, the bigger percentage of an audience, of the audience of WWF being kids rather than Crockett. Were those Warlord and Barbarian sympathetic looking baby faces that the kids would like? Those two ugly fuckers.
The Warlord is one of the more like a wall, like people I've ever seen in just gigantic and thick. You know, recently I saw some footage of him. I guess it would have been '86 for Crockett with Baby Doll. I think it was '86. And I never thought this before, but now I guess because of how old I am, I was like, man, he was young. Like I never saw him as a young person. When I was a kid, I just saw like, he's this giant. He looks like he's out of fucking Game of Thrones. He doesn't look real.
He's younger than me. When I was working with him in '86, I had just turned 25 or was just turning 25 and he was still 21 years old. But look, it was just a mountain. And that's another thing they said, well, he weighed 325 and was built like that when he was 21, 22 years old. They said when he graduated high school, when he was 18, he weighed 185 pounds.
That's crazy.
Help me.
That's crazy.
Help me.
And he's still out there because every now and then you see photos of like him and the Barbarian at a convention and they're just like, you know, dressed normally, but they have the face paint on. You know?
Yeah.
They got that look.
No, Terry, he's a great guy. Barb, too. I love both those guys. I saw him on a show right before I quit doing shows, and they were just happy as clams.
See, Demolition may have been influenced by the Road Warriors, but Powers of Pain were, in my eyes, clearly, hey, let's pretend we have the Road Warriors. Because they look so much like the Road, even if you look at the gear. The gear was the same. All right, well, let's get one more question, Jim. That was the Warlord and Bill Luster. And this show is losing its luster by the second.